My name is Jana, and I was born and raised from the Philippines. Specifically, I was born in Quezon City, Philippines. And I grew up in Manila, Taguig City, Fort Bonifacio areas. My dad was in the military, and we've been moving around. Went to school in the Philippines, graduated from UP Diliman. Um, and elementary
I
education
was
for
still
special.
like floored when you said that to me. I was like,
No,
you're
do
making
not be
me out of
deceived.
the house.
No, it's just funny because a lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, you're from UP Diliman." You don't know.
No,
So
I just accept it. Just accept it.
it's
He
just
is
funny,
a
but
genius.
proud is ka. I speak Tagalog. I understand the language. I speak the language. My mom is from Pampanga. She's Kapampangan, and my dad is from Romblon. So this is Bisaya. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's why. That's awesome.
yes, I know. I don't understand Bisaya. I know a few words,
Mhm.
few phrases that I understand, and Kapampangan as well. My daughters understand Tagalog.
Yeah, that was really
So,
cool.
and we just moved here to California when I got married to my husband. So, yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. I was actually really enjoying when you first joined the call and you were speaking to me in Tagalog. And
Hey!
I was so happy.
Like you said, it's just like knowing that someone is Filipino, knowing that someone can speak the language. It just gives you that, like you said, that warm, welcoming feeling like, oh my goodness, like this feels so good because
Yeah. I was
I can,
struggling, by the way. Like I don't get
Sorry.
to practice my Tagalog as much, but
Yeah,
my Bisaya, of course, because my cousins are here.
I wish I knew how to speak Bisaya or Kapampangan. I
Mhm.
used to understand it, but you know, it's mostly really Tagalog and English. And now being married to my husband, who's Vietnamese, so he speaks fluent Vietnamese.
Oh, that's cool.
So yes, it is
Yeah.
cool. So it's
Do
funny
your
because
kids
he
know how to speak
a
Vietnamese?
little bit only,
Oh,
a
cool.
little bit, and it's funny because it's like instead of me learning how to speak Vietnamese, my husband started to learn how to speak Tagalog. He started to understand phrases in Tagalog. He started not just the food, but it's like he could pick up like context, like phrases and here and
Oh, that's
there.
pretty cool.
So it's funny, right? He understands it.
Mhm.
Like I would tell my daughters, it's like sige, like, and my husband started to do the same thing. Sige, like yeah, and they know like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. Having that connection to it, it's just like so much easier to communicate in our language. So that's why when you like would drop words in Tagalog, I'm like, oh my gosh, it speaks Tagalog, and I'm just like Tagalog, and I'm just like, and I didn't even know that you didn't fully understand Tagalog because I'm like, oh,
No,
she
no, I
started
fully
talking to me in
understand it.
Tagalog.
It's just hard for me to like kind of come up with the words to say
Oh
because I
yes.
keep saying the Bisaya version of the words, and I'm like, no,
Oh
that's not it.
no, I get it. It's okay. Okay, so how did I get started in my business? So it started as a life skill activity in my classroom. So I'm a teacher, I'm a special ed teacher, and I started a student led business in my classroom. So one of the things this is one of the things that I had to do as a post secondary teacher, which is from 18 to 22 years old for young adults with disability. So I handled the class of a group of students who are at the end of the spectrum. I'm sorry to say this, but it's often forgotten. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know what's going to happen to them. It's because my students were unemployable,
Mhm.
and it's because of their disability. It requires more prompting, more support verbally, physically. There's sensory overload, there are
Yeah.
sensory needs, and there's just so much in place that they just couldn't go out in the community. And some of them would refuse to get in a car to get to
Yeah.
a job. Like, one of the things that I had to do was to create, oh, they had to go to a job.
Mhm.
And we reached out to a lot of companies, and some of them offered jobs. Most of them, I wouldn't say all of them, but most of them are housekeeping. When I say housekeeping, they're just like, oh, just gonna wipe down, whatever for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong about this because technically they are being outside the community. Like you want
Yeah.
them to be included in the community, right? But my special ed heart thinks and believes that they are capable of doing so much more. So
Yeah.
what I started to do is that if my students cannot work cannot go outside,
Mhm.
I'm going to bring the job inside,
Yeah.
which is inside the classroom. It's a controlled environment. I have my staff with me, and we can train my students how to make candles. Before you know it, in less than 2 months or within 2 months, we were a nonprofit business and we started selling our can. There's like an area where my students would just do the inventory. There's one who would just label. There's one who would deliver, and we started delivering like within the school district, like other teachers would purchase from us.
Oh,
And
that's
it's as easy
awesome.
as just like, you just start there. Like you start with the people that you know. I think that's how I started my business too. Special ed will always have a place in my heart. Like I have an idea of like the price point, like how much are we going to sell it? Who are we going to sell it to? Where do we start? And that was like the foundation. That was like my experience of selling candles and making candles.
Mhm.
But like I said, I had like a classroom and it was more of like teaching. I quit my job and I started my business.
Mhm.
But pandemic happened, everything was closed out. The original plan of what I wanted to do with my business, like teaching students with, vocational skills at a community center, I quit my job. So
Mhm.
I have nothing. And then I don't want to go back to teaching too, just because of like, how am I going to teach my students, my moderate to severe students, through a camera,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, how am I going to make them sit? Like, how am I? Everything that I do in class is hands on.
Mhm.
Everything that I do in class requires assistance. Like, are you going to expect your working parents to be right next to the student while you're in front of a camera like this?
Yeah.
My husband was the one who told me, it's like, why does it always have to be with your students?
Mhm.
Why can't you make the candles yourself? You know how to make them. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, but no, the students. And then he was just like, it's up to you. I'm just giving you ideas
Yeah.
because your money is sleeping right now. Like you
Yeah.
bought all the supplies, you have everything set up, and you're not doing anything about it. So that's when I'm like, you know what? He's right. Let me figure this out. So my Facebook group for our community, the admins were like, oh, if you have a small business, we want to help you. You can start posting it on Tuesdays. I think it was just once a week. And I was like, let me give this a shot. So I started making candles. And they're not even Filipino, like the scents. We're not in Filipino, we're not in Tagalog.
Mhm.
So it was more of like, say, I give you an example, like my manga at gata.
Mhm.
It was like the English was like mango and coconut milk. Oh my goodness, people were buying from me. So that's when I realized, like, yeah, you know what? I was so stuck in this mindset that it has to be this. And then it was like legit, like door to door delivery. Like I would drive and I would drop off the candles. My daughters would be with me and we would drop off the orders. We would write it down on receipts. We would, the receipt, like the carbon paper and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how I started. We know that there's a market for it. And then I don't know how it happened, but it was just like, you know what? I just want to do a Filipino inspired candles. My sister and I were just talking about it. It's like, oh, kandila, and then you just put like the accent, on the A, kandila, like there's an
Mm.
accent. They're like, okay, that works. And then I just want a black and white. I'm really minimal. I don't want
Mhm.
like the colorful ones.
Mhm.
I tried it, but it's just so difficult for me. So that's how it all started. And then before you know it, September 15 of 2020 is when I launched my website. Okay, and I started launching it. I was so excited, and it was like the anniversary, and it also happened to be my birthday. I did it on my birthday, so I would remember it. So my
I was
anniversary,
gonna say, like, wow, you remembered that day. That's awesome.
I would remember it because it's my birthday. So I'm just like every single year I get to celebrate my birthday and my anniversary as a business owner, as a small
Mhm.
business owner. So that's how it all started. It's not like, oh, I want to do this. I want to
Yeah,
start a
yeah. It
business.
wasn't like an
No,
overnight thing. Yeah, it
no,
was
it
a
wasn't.
journey.
It was, I started making those candles in 2018.
Oh wow, that's
So,
awesome.
mind you, I knew how to make the candles, but I just wasn't thinking about it as like a profit or
Yeah.
a business. It was more of like a passion project. How does my Filipino background inspire my work? First of all, like the name of my my business went from creative hand. Creative hands is like for my school.
Mhm.
And it became Candila. Yeah, I'm selling candles, like Candila na lang. I think that it all started. And then what's really interesting is that the scents. There's just so much that the Philippines has to offer. Like when it comes to like Sampaguita, it'll be my bestseller because
Mhm.
it's a national flower of the Philippines, and that's like a highlight. And it started with that, Sampaguita. And then I wanted to add more scents. Well, I want to be able to offer something that's not just Sampaguita, not just manga at gata, not just like, pakwan. Like,
Mhm.
what other scents can I offer? The whole Filipino inspired candles. I just thought about it because it's like, it would be so funny if I translate this in Tagalog. Even if I was like, should I make like bagoong scent, adobo, like, lechon and things like that? But that's a
Can
stretch.
you
Like, but
imagine
no,
adobo?
I know,
I'd be
but
hungry all the time. I'd gain weight.
yeah, but I mean, there's some areas like, there are some states like they don't really have access to Filipino food. And sometimes maybe the scent of
The
like just
scent,
having
yeah.
adobo, scent is like, it's like they said something about the scents, like it's like it brings back memories. Like when you
Mhm.
smell something, it just brings back memories. So that's like probably what I wanted to do with my
Mhm.
candles. It's
Yeah.
that it would bring back memories, like good memories, hopefully. Like a lot of people who bought from me, like the candles, it's like it reminds me so much of my Lola's garden. It
Yes. Oh
reminds
my
me so
gosh,
much
wait,
of this
mine
and that.
too. Well, that's what I think of Sampaguita now, is like I think about it as my grandma's um
Yes. So it's just like
garden.
it's like even if you have someone who passed away and then you have this, it's like it brings back the memories that you've
Yeah.
had with them. And it's also like we're far away from the Philippines, and it's like
Mm.
it's this is the closest that you get from Sampaguita. Like like you can't get the actual flower, but at least I have this and it will help you. I have someone reach out to me, a customer and a friend said that, your Sampaguita candle like helped me through the pandemic.
Aw.
Like and it's just like it's so touching to hear stories like this, that like your candle actually helped them get through the pandemic. With Candila, it's just like there's just so much more that I could like share. There's just
Yeah.
so much more that sometimes I don't want to share it because it overwhelms me, and we're a different topic. But at the same time, it's like when I would brainstorm, like I would have ideas. It's like the Filipino has just so much more to offer, the Filipino
Mhm.
culture. Like it's not just about food, it's not just about like the flowers, it's not just about that, but it's just like the places that we have that you grew up in. It's like
Mhm.
these are all like part of like I'm slowly starting to understand that
Mhm.
this is where I come from and this is my brand, it's my story. So now I'm learning more about the culture, I'm learning more about like what I thought I knew that I didn't know before. But it's just this whole thing is just like being surrounded with a community,
Mhm.
Filipino community. I've been learning a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, so my vision for my platform is that to support young adults with disabilities, and for them to be gainfully employed within their communities.
Mhm.
So I think it's not more of the, yes, I have a Filipino brand,
Yeah.
and you would think that this would align with something Filipino. And I think this is something that I wanted to share, that there's nothing wrong with it not being online. Like you have a Filipino product,
Yeah.
you have a Filipino brand. There's so much more than being a Filipino. Like, and whether it be through candles or whether it be through me teaching, like I'm a Filipino, like I'm a teacher and I'm Filipino. My vision is just really, like, really, I'm so passionate about this group and I wanted
Mhm.
to help out and I wanted to give back. I think this is the only time that I'm able to actually share it,
Yeah.
like, like in an interview.
I was watching a K-drama today
Mm-hmm.
on Netflix. Is the Woo-young Amazing Woo. So she's basically an attorney. She's on the spectrum, and there was an episode where the person that she was defending was
Mm-hmm.
also on the spectrum, but on the like the end part.
Oh, yes, yes,
Um
yes.
and that's why I was able to kind of understand what you were saying when you're like
Yes.
the more kind of like on the other side where it's a little harder to kind of like there's more
Yes.
assistance
They
needed
they
to it.
need a voice.
Yeah.
Like they need
So
someone advocating for them. They need someone telling them, telling people like,
Yeah.
hey,
So
this
it's
is
like
what's going on.
the mom of the client, she was saying like it's hard for me to kind of see you, like being functional and defending him in the situation, like seeing you in society while he can't be,
He can't even like
can't
he can't even do
participate.
the
Yeah.
day-to-day things, like,
Yes,
right? He needs so
exactly.
much assistance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's why it's called a spectrum, right? Because it's like it could vary. And every
Mhm.
person is different. I wasn't even aware about, the differences
Mhm.
until that one episode. And I think it's just the small things like that. Like we know it from the term when you read the description of
Yeah.
the disorder and being on the
Mhm.
spectrum and stuff like that. But like just seeing the difference, just like one person could be this way and one person could be
Mhm.
that way.
Mhm.
And doesn't mean like they're any less or any better. It's
Yeah,
just who
no.
they are.
It's just
Um,
really like
Crazy.
the way that I used to, because my daughters would ask me. My daughter went to the same school where I was teaching,
Mm,
and she would see that the students that I had in my class were like different,
yeah.
different, like physically different when it comes to like sensory stuff, like,
Mm,
playing and all that. And I told her, it's like, the way that I would describe it to a 6-year old, my eldest daughter is now 11. When she was 6 years old, the way I describe it to her is that um, there are some things that you're good at, but
mm,
there are some things that you're not good at, right?
yeah.
And same thing with my students. There's something they're really good at. Like I have students who are so bright, like they could memorize
Mm,
everything, like the kinds of airplanes, like
mm,
everything, like TV channels. Like it's so fascinating. Like they could memorize it. They could draw like
mm,
with, like holding the pencil like this or a marker like this, and you could draw like the entire Snoopy character, like
mm,
everything. It's just fascinating. And I tell her, it's like, see, you don't like math and you're not good at math, right? So I told her, it's like, it's the same thing. Some of mommy's students, they're really good at something. Like they're good at writing, they're good at drawing, reading, and all that. But they're not good at this. They're having a difficult time. Like it takes some time for them to understand what's going on. And
mm,
it's same thing for you. Like when you're feeling like you don't know how to answer a math problem and you get frustrated because you don't know how to get it and
yeah.
you still don't understand it. Yes, that's the level of frustration that my students
Mm,
feel when they are given a new thing.
yeah.
They are presented with new ideas. They're presented with new routines. We're good at things, we're good at something, and we're not good at a lot of things.
Other
And I
things.
think that's just how I would describe it. Same thing with my students. Like there's some things that they're really, really good at, but there's some things that they are not good at. Like they're still working on it. And
Yeah.
that's mommy's job. And I would tell her, it's like, and it is my job to help them out. Same with your teacher. Your teacher's job is to help you with your math. Mommy's job is to help them like with what areas they needed so that they could function, they could do what they need to do. And I think it's just that. And for her, after that, she never really questioned it. It's like she would play
Mm,
with my students, like
yeah.
she
Yeah.
would come to my classroom, and then at the playground she would see, and she would play with her, and then she's able to like
Yeah.
understand like, oh, this is what my mom. And she never see them as someone who's different.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she
That's
never
good.
like, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's just like it starts at home. you know Small business owners, or
Mm-hmm.
like that inspired me. But I think right now the season is Melody from Sweet Condesa. Like I met her last week. It all started with, I saw her calamansi pies. It was like 2020 or 2019. Wanted to order from her. And it all started like that. As I was asking, I was like, "Oh, do you deliver?" And she said, "No, no, unfortunately, we don't ship." Like, we were talking, and it became a friendship. Like, and then
Yeah.
last week I finally met her, and I was just so inspired by, how she started in her business, and before even she started the business and what she was doing, the interviews that she's getting. It's just so inspiring, and she's just so humble. I'm grateful to have her as a friend, and it was just through IG.
I
This
think I've
is
met some pretty good internet friends from there. Um,
Yeah. Maraming salamat for I would say my followers, but maraming salamat sa inyong suporta. Like from the very beginning, from those who've been following me since day one. Maraming salamat. I really appreciate you. I will be preparing for our holiday candila. So there's just so much more in store for you. And I'm hoping that I'm gonna be able to offer more of Candila here in Texas. And I appreciate you for sticking around and for following my journey and for always supporting me and encouraging me. So maraming salamat.